Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivasesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane. Hare Krishna. I'm sorry for my disguised garb. I came from work and didn't have a chance to change. I wanted to share a few stories about Srila Prabhupada that I think...
Can I move the microphone closer? Is that right?
Whatever you say.
Whenever I command, okay.
Yes. That I think illustrate the way there are so many stories about Srila Prabhupada that illustrate his unlimited, glorious spiritual qualities. The stories I'm thinking of today, I think illustrate something about Prabhupada's unique spiritual position amongst sages, rishis, acharyas, and spiritual masters. And this is, I don't believe at all controversial to say this. Srila Prabhupada, to me, is a personality who was sent to this world. And his mission in coming to the world and being sent to the West was this one and the same: to deliver the Vedic knowledge to the human society. He was sent, in my understanding, from the spiritual world down into this material realm for this sacred purpose. How was Prabhupada able to write the books that he wrote? Those of us who spent time with Prabhupada and who saw his daily schedule, his 24-hour-a-day schedule, can barely comprehend how he found the time when everyone else was asleep and thus not bothering him for those few hours to concentrate and be Krishna's instrument and hear Krishna speak to him and write each word as he heard it. Srila Prabhupada is a personality who could see Krishna and who could hear Krishna while appearing in this world. He was not of this world. So I want to give a few stories or examples of how I've come to this realization about Prabhupada's position. The first story is something that I heard from our artists when they were painting and just starting the process of painting for Srila Prabhupada's books. They really didn't know how Krishna was supposed to appear other than a few posters that they had seen. So one day Jadharani was in Prabhupada's quarters and said to Prabhupada, I look at the brahmacharis and I see how they wear their dhotis, and it helps me to have models to paint from, but I don't think that's how Mother Yasoda dressed Krishna. I don't think that's how Krishna is supposed to look in Vrindavan. And I'm painting for the Krishna book, and Prabhupada said, let me show you. And he got up and took a dhoti from his shelf and started fastening it over what he was wearing in a way that she had never seen before. Perhaps no one had ever seen before. And then he took another piece of material from his shelf and tied it as a sash. And Jadharani is sitting there with her mouth on the floor, just astonished that Prabhupada is modeling for her. And when Prabhupada finished, he said, this is how Mother Yasoda dressed Krishna. This is how Krishna would look. Do you understand? So she said, Srila Prabhupada, I was so amazed at what you were doing, I wasn't paying careful attention. Somehow or other, she had the nerve and courage to ask him to do it again. And he did it again. And if you open our original Krishna books and look at how Krishna's devotee appears in his childhood, that's where it came from. It did not come from posters. It came from Srila Prabhupada saying, this is how Mother Yasoda dresses Krishna. During that same period in Boston, where the art department first really began, Arundhati and Jadharani had this transcendental competition where each day, each one of them would take a turn asking Srila Prabhupada a question. So on this particular day, it was Arundhati's turn. Arundhati is the wife of Pradyumna, who was the head in the first beginning of our Sanskrit department. So she said, Srila Prabhupada, can you actually hear Krishna's flute? A bold question. We're sitting in Prabhupada's room. And Prabhupada had this way, sometimes when you would ask him questions, of leaning back and half closing his eyes, and you would immediately, if you've ever seen this, you would immediately know he's like with Krishna. He's not just here in this body. He's not just here in this plane. And so they described how he had this look and then opened his eyes and said, yes. Like he had just been listening to Krishna's flute. And he said yes. There's no other person that we have ever met that could ever say that and have it be based on reality, absolute truth. So this is our Srila Prabhupada. He is not of this world. And he is not of this material plane. He's not on this plane. He had the power to inject bhakti into almost anyone he met. And by doing it, he had a way of empowering them to do impossible things. I have one or two personal experiences of this in my life. In 1975, we had just moved the art department and ISKCON Press to Los Angeles. And Prabhupada visited in June. And he was actually quite disturbed because we were publishing, BBT was set up half in the West Coast, half in the East Coast prior to this move. We were publishing one volume of Srimad Bhagavatam every 3 or 4 months. And we thought that was pretty good. And for those who did not know, we thought that was the pace of Srila Prabhupada's translation. That every 3 or 4 months, he would find the time while everyone was asleep to give the world a 400-page book. So when he came to Los Angeles, well, they had warned me about this prior to his coming, but when he came to Los Angeles, he was very unhappy that he had given 17 books that had not even begun to go into the process of production. 17 books ahead of us. And if you do the math from about 1970, let's say 72 to 1977, Prabhupada's giving a 400-page book of the highest knowledge that the world has ever seen, practically speaking, every month, while everyone is asleep. And he's not sleeping. So, anyway. So we're walking on the beach, and Radha Bolivar and I had tried to prepare for this moment, and we said, Prabhupada, we think we can double the pace. We think we can produce a book every 2 months. And he didn't even acknowledge that. So I blurted out. I had a tendency, very often when I was with Srila Prabhupada, of being so amazed and so inspired all at the same time that I would blurt things out. So I blurted out, without checking with Radha Bolivar or Jayadvaita or anybody else, Prabhupada, I think we'll create 2 assembly lines. We can do a book a month. Because we had presented a book every 2 months. I had no idea how we were going to do this because each book needs new artwork. And it was taking the artists 2 or 3 months to do a painting. And there was a lot of back and forth time asking Prabhupada questions about the art. By the way, there was never a moment when you asked Srila Prabhupada a question about anything, whether it be anything in the spiritual world or anything in any part of the material world, that he did not instantly have the correct answer for. That he did not instantly know. Not, oh, I'll get back to you, let me look that up. No. Instantly, if you ask Prabhupada, what does this demigod look like? What does his world look like? What does this anything look like? He would be able to describe it instantly, perfectly, with absolute knowledge. This is an amazing quality of Srila Prabhupada's. This unbelievable reservoir of knowledge that was in him. And because Krishna is speaking to us through him. So anyway, so I said, we can do a book a month. I blurted that out. So Prabhupada paused and he said, let's see, book a month means 17 months. No, he said, I want all 17 books in 2 months. All 17 in 2 months. Now, of these 17 books, 15 of them were Bengali language books, Chaitanya Charitamrita. We had published 2 volumes. And the other 2 were the 5th canto, back to Sanskrit. We really only had a Sanskrit department. We had just begun having our Sanskrit men learn Bengali. So it took longer to get up to speed just for that work that they had to do. So anyway, I again blurted out the obvious. Prabhupada, that's impossible. What else could anybody in normal state of mundane consciousness say? No matter how devoted I was to Prabhupada, I said, that's impossible. And Prabhupada stopped walking. He planted his cane in the sand. By the way, he had called for leading sannyasis and GBC men from around the world to fly in for this very morning walk. He wanted the leadership of our movement standing in a semicircle behind him as he was about to utter these words. That I want 17 books in 2 months. So when I told Prabhupada that I think that's impossible, he stopped walking. His cane is firmly planted in the sand. He's looking at me with eyes that penetrate every... I don't even have the words to describe how he's looking through me and in me and telling me with this incredible spiritual potency that he possessed, this Ladini Shakti, this incredible energy. He just said, impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. So I could barely see the other leaders staring at me like, boy, I'm glad I'm not him. But I'm looking at Prabhupada as intensely as I can with every ounce of faith that I can muster, trying to digest what he just said, that this is possible. And without going into a long tale, I will say this. Instantly upon the acceptance of that order to me, something happened which had nothing, I guarantee you, nothing to do with me. Never had anything to do with me, ever. Millions of ideas are starting to flood into my head, my intelligence, my heart. It's just filling me with how to do this. And here I am years later, if someone asked me, how did you do 17 books in 2 months? I cannot explain it in a logical, rational way, because it defies certain laws of physics and certain laws of publishing and certain laws of art, and it just defies so many practical ways of the world working. And yet it happened. And the idea of how to make it happen just somehow entered my head, and it worked. The order carried a potency to carry out the order. That's Srila Prabhupada. That's the potency that's in him. You know, when I look around our worldwide movement today, I sometimes try to think, all these thousands of new devotees that have never seen Prabhupada in his Vapu form, and yet how are they so enthused? Where is this coming from? Because there's no one on the planet like Prabhupada, but they're acting exactly as I saw all of us act when we were with Prabhupada. And it's because Prabhupada is still here. He is still present. They still are worshiping him as their Siksha Guru. They're still hearing his words and his orders, and those words are carrying the same Shakti that we felt when we were with Prabhupada. So the Vapu is not the essence of our relationship with Prabhupada, but the Vani is. I'm going to tell one last story very quickly. Tamal Krishna Maharaj and I were taking Prabhupada in a car on one of his morning walks in L.A. We were driving to Santa Monica. Anyway, we were talking about something we had read, something I'd read in newspapers, some current event news, about something that had happened here in New York. There was a demonic artist who used to stage demonic events, happenings in New York. His name was Andy Warhol. So he had staged one of these demonic events. Many people attended, blah, blah, blah. And the New York Times had a small article about it that caught my attention, because he had said at the end of the event, after people had left praising the event and the food and everything, he had said, they did not know that the meat that I had served came from aborted fetuses. That's how insane this guy was. So I read this, and as was my tendency to blurt things out, I said, Prabhupada, this was in the news. This just happened. This guy served food from an abortion clinic. And, I expected, and when Tamal heard this, we all expected Prabhupada to really smash the demonic nature of people in the Kali Yuga. And we had certain expectations which so often fell short of what actually Prabhupada was going to think or say about something. Our expectations and Prabhupada, like there's an ocean of difference. So, expecting Prabhupada to Prabhupada sits back on his car and says, yes, they have not yet learned in Kali Yuga that is the tastiest of all meats. So, things are filling my head immediately with Prabhupada saying this. And, first I'm thinking on a mundane level, how does Prabhupada have any idea what any meat tastes like, first of all? Let alone being able to judge which is the tastiest. How is this even possible for someone that's never been impure, ever? And then it just hit me immediately. Of course, Prabhupada knows everything. There's nothing he doesn't know, because he hears Krishna speaking to him. He sees Krishna in his heart. He's on a plane of Paramahansa Madhikari that we can barely even begin to comprehend. So, as was my tendency when I recovered, I just again blurted out, Prabhupada, you are so amazing that you know these things. And I said, and your books are so amazing, because you not only write perfectly for the time that we are in, but You know what's going to happen in the future. And you put that in your books as well. It's just your books are just that amazing. Everything about you that I'm beginning to glimpse is in your books. So Prabhupada said, yes. This is why I so carefully choose each word. Because my books are meant to be the law books for all of human society for the next 10,000 years. The entire golden era of Kali Yuga, the Chaitanya era, Prabhupada's books are meant to be the core books. Everything else will come from it, but he said these are the law books for the next 10,000 years. So we are not talking and glorifying, we're not talking about and glorifying an ordinary acharya, an ordinary saint. We're talking about something so extraordinary. You know, in the beginning of the Nectar Devotion, the invocation says the Goswamis are so amazing that they're glorified all over the three worlds. Because who are they? They're personalities from Goloka Vrindavan. So the demigods glorified, and every planet. Well, that's Srila Prabhupada as well. That is Srila Prabhupada. No one else could ever say that. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.